سلام بچه‌ها، من زیپی هستم. اومدم با پارت 2 بازی استلنری باحال. آره، اسمش تو کپشن میذارم. بازی چند پیش رایگان بود تو استیم و اگرم پارت 1 رو ندیدید برید توی همین کانال یوتیوب من و قسمت 1 رو نگاه کنید. بزن بریم.
When Stanley came to a set of two
میریم
open doors,
راست.
this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Yes,
Okay.
truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
من نمیرم پس.
Stanley was so
یاد سنجی انجام میده. این کار رو انجام نمیخوام در واقع. من چه اتفاقی میفته؟ چی میشه رفت؟ پارت.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life.
میگه که اخو تصمیم نگیر و هر چی من دیگه انجام میده. من دشمن تو نیستم، ولی زر میزنه بدترین دشمن همون یارو. میگه این همون دختر است. برمیگردم. چیکار کنم؟ 427 تا خودم.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold
میگه
on,
اسن
sorry to
توی.
keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you.
I'm
trying to make a point here, Stanley.
I'm trying
to get you to see something. Come inside.
تویش
Let me
ببینیم.
show you
بیا
what's
تو.
really going on here.
میخوام اینجوری چشم بدم.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Good morning. Press P on your keyboard.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
To watch TV.
And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
Get to spend time with the boys.
So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
سرویس کرده.
Through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
میگی دفعه اگر چیزی خواسته که فشار بدی انجامش نده. و اگر انجامش بدم چیکار باید کنم؟ که please press B to be at in the morning. میگه بیا بزن تا سر صبح کار کنی. نمیخوام. در نمیشه رفت. تو باز نمیشی. تو چی؟ هیچی. خب گفت فشار نده. نمیخوام فشار میشه اصلا. Jesus منش بودیم. بیدی؟ که من گوش نمیدی. اون بهم گوش نمیده اصلا. بهش بگم من بیست ندم. کوشین نسیم چیز نپرسیدم.
I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purposes, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time I'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again.
لطفاً بمیر.
And I tried again. And Stanley pushed the button. And I
منو کشت. فقط تصمیمی که گرفتم. واو. اوکی.
Wait. No. This is the right office, is it? It's a Stanley's office. Stanley came to us. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew the very well. Perhaps he was stopped by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow. Yes. This room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous room. Thank goodness Stanley had taken the detour button to get back to business.
جنگ کاری بکن که من بهت میگم. میرم چپ.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief,
اخراجی نشید. کم طرف بزنید.
hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all.
من گیر کردم واسه همیشه اینجا.
And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange
من هر چقدر برم بازم به یه چی میرسم. نگاه.
Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating?
گیر کردم واسه همیشه.
This is all too strange. This can't be real.
1 2 3 4 آره گیر کردم.
He came to the conclusion that
مریم حتمیه قطعا.
he just hadn't found the words for it.
چی میگه؟
I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream.
میگه تمام یه رویاست.
What a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
میگه تصور کنه پرواز میکنه و همش اینه خیاله.
And it too appeared. It was so much fun. And Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake as ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control.
خواست بگه ساتوی نوشتنده کنولشه ولی همش رویه بود.
And he invited himself to wake up.
و منو کشتش.
The press of the mattress on his back. The fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me
wake up,
he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job.
یکی تمام آپارتمانم میخوام، زنم میخوام، کارم میخوام، تمام چیزی که زندگی میخواد داشته باشم. زندگی نرماله، من نرمالم، همه چی اوکی میشه، خوب میشه، من خوبم.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley.
نه، داره میترسونه.
I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real.
میگه زمان ترسونه استنلیه. من استنلیم، خوشه من بگید من واقعیم. کمکم کنید. یک کمکم کنه. یکی بگه واقعیه. یه جوری بازش جان بخشه بشه. مریلا. میگه داستان زندگی مریلاست. ماریلا.
But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't.
داره که همه رویاست، من یه واقعی ام.
And in a certain way, seeing
همه
this
چیز کنترل بود زندگی من.
But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
داستان میره از اول. آره؟ نه.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 45. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word Escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
میگه در پشت بسته نشده و اصلا میتونه برگردی بده و از اون بری سمت ترک.
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
دیگه بری مرگت حتمیه. یه دویای سخته واقعا. یعنی جهنم داره. نه پای چیزی ندستم. راست میگفت. دیدم کنم خالی بود. نه خالی نبود.
As the
Okay.
machine whirred into motion, and Stanley was inched closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is.
Okay.
Perhaps his
الان
death
من
is
میشم.
more than loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind. And so
من
he
نمیتونم
resigned
بپرم
and
خدا.
willingly accepted the
من
final
میمیرم.
end to his brief and shallow
مردم.
life. Farewell, Stanley.
اوکی. نرو. لعنت کردم. اول فصل.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws.
دو
For a
میزنه دیگه
single
است.
visceral
داره حرف
instant,
میزنه.
Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
اوکی.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
کامپیوتر اسلامی. آفیس کامپیوتر بابایی. کامپیوتر کاری هم. خب. شنجیر. کی بود؟ نفهمیدم چی گفت. آفیس. از تو دکوره سودم رو میشم 431 بارزون صحنه جنگ گی آریو گی تو گی هستی فانگنس چنینگو دلشون رو دونجه ایمیلی که واسه هم میدش چهارده چه اتفاقاتش میفته نیازه که یه راه دیگه هم میتونه بیاد اینجا چند تا راه میکشه میره. هیچ چیز جالبی نداره اصلا. نه بهتر بیام برم اونور. بذار برم. اینجا خبری هست.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How
بینی تو
they
نگاه
wish to
کن.
control one another.
چجوری میخوایی
How
چه
they
کنترل
both
کنی؟
wish to be free. Can you see?
میتونی ببینی؟ میتونی ببینی که چقدر به یه نفر نیاز داری.
Perhaps not. Sometimes these things
بعضی
cannot be
وقتا
seen.
چیزا قابل دیدن نیستن.
But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can
چند
stop
میتونی
the
جو خودت
murder
بدید
before
بدی؟
they both fail.
تو
Push
میتونی
escape and press
ببینم.
quit. There's no other
Press
way to
space and
escape.
press
So
quiet.
as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now. It will be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time.
وای کویت کدوم بود؟ کویت نمیدم. گفت اسپیس کویتو بزن تا از اون قضیه خلاص شی. خلاص شی. فکرم مردم. چه مرسی که پارت دیدید. احتمالا کلیپش قسمت سوم فردا شب میذارم. یادتون نره لایک و کامنت بذارید حتما و سمت راست برید میشه سابسکرایب دکمه قرمز و سابسکرایب کنید و دکمه زنگوله هم بزنید که هر پستی گذاشتم همون رو بهتون خبر میده. ممنونم. See you.